Hello, 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 everybody. It's noon Pacific Standard Time, April 16th, 2020. This has certainly been one hell of a year, hasn't it? Yesterday, we lost a wonderful saxophonist, humorist, man who was present at the beginning of what has been dubbed Birth of the Cool. I'm talking about Lee Konitz. See him in the background here. Lee played on those sessions with Miles, the Birth of the Cool sessions. That music, although at the time, in 1949, it was just couple of gigs at the Royal Roost and a recording session, and then see you later. It turned out to be important and everlasting. The Birth of the Cool sessions, thanks to Miles Davis and Gil Evans and Lee Konitz and the other people who played on that. Lee was 92. That is a pretty good run. Let's face it. In a life that's temporary, 92 is a long life. And Lee Konitz had a productive life. He played until recently. I don't know the exact details of his health issues. I know he did pass from COVID. I didn't dig into the obituaries that much, though, to see what that's about. I'm sure you could find out. But nevertheless, 92, fantastic recorded legacy. I posted a video last night, a tribute to Lee that was recorded at Highlights in Jazz back in the 70s. Jack Kleinsinger has produced a concert series in New York for decades now. And what he does, he brings different people together that you might not think of playing together. And there's been some great music produced over the years. Anyway, there was a Charlie Parker tribute that Lee Konitz played on. Jimmy Owens is on there. Bernard Purdy is on drums. I forget the other cats. Anyway, it's on the video. But what Lee Konitz did was kind of special that night because we know Lee Konitz's music. Now, those of us who've been around him, and I've had the opportunity to be around, or had the opportunity to be around Lee Konitz a bit, most notably at a Joe Lovano recording session with his Nanette. Lee was there and hanging out with the cats. That was fun. But we don't know, you don't know, Lee Konitz, the person. So, my friend Jim Igo, the jazz email guru, and Jack Kleinsinger were kind enough to give me this video to post. And here we see Lee. He comes out and he's talking about Charlie Parker. Actually, I started this video at that point. I have another video on here where you see the whole thing, because what happens is he comes out and the first 10 minutes, he plays a cassette tape of Super Sax playing Bird. Those of you who may remember Super Sax as the band that played Charlie Parker solos in harmony, 5 sax players, which was a pretty serious undertaking, given the dexterity, being able to play Bird solos, not an easy task. And then what happens is, in this video, the one that I posted last night and the old one as well, Lee comes out and he talks about how people have said, that I'm one of the sax players associated with Charlie Parker, or they say that I'm not. Now I forgot it. But he says, but I am. And what he does is he plays a Charlie Parker recording and he plays along with it. And then the other guys from the tribute come out and they play along with him. So not only do you see him play, which is very interesting because he plays bebop, And later in his career, he didn't play that much bebop per se. And you see also his personality. He had a great sense of humor, as you'll see on this video. Yeah. So let's see here. Any comments? I'm well, thank you. Yes, Jacob. It is a very entertaining video. Well, I have some good videos. I don't say I have the best videos. Hello, Spain. Open song. Yeah. Jimmy Owens is a very underrated trumpeter. I mean, I've known him personally since the 70s, but I've known about him since the 60s, probably through Billy Taylor initially, because he played with Billy. They were very good friends. He worked at Jazzmobile. Also, he was a trumpet player in Billy's band on the David Frost show. That's how I first really found out about him. Yeah. So Lee Konitz, his music remains. His music is here, thankfully, and lots of video of him on YouTube. In the back here is a duo thing. This is one of Lee's last performance settings with a pianist named Dan Tepfler. You can easily find this on YouTube. There's a number of these concerts on here. And also, he is available, pardon me, I mentioned the website Sugar Megs, and I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to grab some Lee Konitz on here and play it for you. Let's see. Lee Konitz Quartet, 2009, live at the Village Vanguard. Dan Tepfler is on drums. George Schuler is on bass. Okay. They say the sound quality is A, so let's give it a shot here. Where did it go? Okay, bear with me for 1 second, my friends. Live from the website sugarmegs.com, a gig with Lee Konitz from the Vanguard. Okay. Do you hear the applause? That's not for me. That's for Lee Konitz and the band at the Vanguard.
I'd like to take the liberty of welcoming you here on behalf of Max and Lorraine Gordon. Is that okay, Lorraine? Oh, then I can tell you some things that she's not here. I would like you to meet my colleagues here. We'll be playing here for the first time together. We have no idea what we're going to play.
So that's interesting. They're playing together for the first time. Going to the Vanguard, opening on a Tuesday night. They don't know what they're going to play. That's pretty mind-boggling.
I told them not to dress too formally.
Anyway, let me put this a little bit ahead here into the music. Okay, so Lee Konitz, yeah. How's the volume of the music? Can you hear me and the music? Should I bring the music down a bit? Hi, Neil. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I got a new companion here today. I created a Lee Konitz playlist just this afternoon for standards. Yeah. Maybe you could put the link for the playlist on here, Neil. That would be cool. Gotta lower this a little bit. Okay, so this is kind of a weird period here, isn't it? I mean, well, first of all, this virus thing, I mean, it's like turning the world around, but a lot of musicians, well, a lot of people are leaving. A lot of people are leaving at this time. I think in New York City, what, one person every 20 seconds is dying, something like that. Anyway, our community, our world of jazz, aloha Hawaii. Our community of jazz has lost a number of people. Lee Konitz is the latest. I mean, a number of them have been people in their 80s and 90s. I mean, we lost Bucky Pizzarelli, the wonderful guitarist. He was in his 90s. We lost Ellis Marsalis. I believe he was in his late 80s. Mike Longo, the pianist who played with Dizzy and shared with Dizzy a devotion to the Baha'i faith, was a younger guy, but he had had health issues for a while. Also, Alfredo. I'm trying to think of the Manu Dibango. Thank you. My brain finally kicked in there. Sol Makosa, the great saxophonist from, yes, Leah survived by sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Sons and daughters and children, and grandchildren. He survived. I don't know about a wife, though. He might have a partner. I didn't see a mention of that. But Manu Dibango from the Cameroon in Africa, his late 60s hit, Sol Makosa, passed away as well in Africa from COVID. COVID is a global pandemic. That's what a pandemic is, right? And unfortunately, we've lost a couple other people as well. People that I was lucky to know a little bit. And McCoy Tyner, Wallace Roney, Onaje Ellingtons. When I first came to New York in 1968, and I started going to the Vanguard, started hanging out in the kitchen of the Vanguard on a regular basis. One, because I love the music, and two, because I discovered that the conversation, the interaction between the musicians when they were hanging out between the sets, that special thing, an environment that happened there in the kitchen of the Vanguard, was very, very special. That word is a little bit overused. Let me see if I could find a better way to say it. I felt like I was privy to a very unique and memorable interchange between some very dynamic creators. And I sat in the kitchen of the Vanguard with many musicians over the years. I lost my thought. It was brilliant, I'm sure, but it'll come back. Am I in touch with Jimmy Cobb? I'm not in touch with Jimmy Cobb, but I am. I saw a posting today, a really beautiful posting today someplace, probably on Facebook or Twitter, or maybe it was one of the jazz websites, listing a number of musicians who are in their 80s and 90s. Sonny Rollins, Benny Golson, Jimmy Cobb. There's a number of Sheila Jordan. How about before I continue on this path of you know what? On a lighter note, I was recently contacted by the estate of a household name in the world of TV acting, offering me some possible work if I would be willing to shave my head and shave my beard. I said that personally I didn't see the resemblance, but I would consider the offer based on how they might compensate me. And here it is. See any resemblance? Okay. Back to Lee Konitz. Oh, a question here. A couple of New York clubs, 7th Avenue South and Sweet Basil. Jeff, which conversations do you speak of? You mean the conversations in the kitchen of the Vanguard? I can come back to that in a second if that's what you mean. 7th Avenue South, the Breckers owned that club. I mean, how hip was that place? That was a very special place where the best musicians in New York, and there are a lot of them, and there was a lot of activity back then in the studios, and the Breckers, the wonderful men that they were, the supportive, chop-loving musicians that they are, because Randy is still around. Yvette, I wish that I had my, wish that I did video back in those days in the kitchen of the Vanguard. But the thing is, it was a really private atmosphere. I don't know if people would act as open as they did if there were cameras present. Something you really can't duplicate. You know, this Lee Konitz set is not enough Lee here. Let me switch over to a Lee Konitz duo instead. I think we'll get more of what I'm looking for in terms of playing his music. This is with Dan Tepler. I don't know Dan, but I know that from Sugar Migs and what I've seen, the videos, Dan and Lee played together a lot.
Dan and I are going to play some what we call standard. We're going to play some tunes, okay?
Okay. Beautiful. It's a better
Which
report.
ones?
Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, Sweet Basil. Great place. Great place to hang out. Musicians love to hang out there. And I think in terms of a New York City jazz club, hello Zoka, ex-gamer Zoka. I mean, you used to be a gamer? You're a reformed gamer? Is there such a thing as a reformed gamer? Is there a need to reform if you're a gamer? I don't know. Are there any gamers in the house? I myself am not a gamer, neither online or at the tables, although there's certainly many casinos out there where gamers of a different sort love to gather. I myself am somewhat perplexed when I happen to see these people. I've been in a casino twice in my life, and I see people like losing their money. I just don't get it. Anyway, Sweet 7th Avenue South, fantastic club. Diagonally across the street, Sweet Basil, another fantastic club. And then 8 or 9 blocks up, the Vanguard. Why is the Vanguard special? The kitchen there? It's not really the conversations themselves, although they vary a lot depending on the musicians in the scene. It's just that the easy repartee between the musicians, the humorous nature of the way that they relate to each other, they're relaxed. They're just really relaxed and having fun. It's a party. It's a party. Yeah. Lucky to be privy to that. And you can still get that today at the Vanguard and Smalls, different scene there. I mean, that's the thing about New York City clubs. If musicians feel comfortable about hanging out there because they don't have to pay to get in, although some will pay to get in because they want to support their fellow musicians. Okay, a couple of questions here. Max Gordon. I didn't go often to hear Thad and Mel. I heard them at different points during the tenure before Thad left and then afterwards through the years. And I must get a drink of water. I suddenly have had this dry mouth thing happen. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. You know, I never talked to Lee about Warren Marsh or his feelings about him. So I don't know about their relationship. I do know that both Warren and Lee had nothing but respect and love for Lennie Tristano. He was something of a mentor to Warren. I'm not sure about Lee, but Lennie Tristano is a fascinating cat. as a player and also as a teacher. A number of musicians have come out of the Lennie Tristano School. In fact, my friend Dave Frank studied with Lennie. There's some stories on his channel or mine, I forget where, about working with Lennie, what he was like as a student teacher. Dave studied with him when he was 16 years old. Lennie Tristano was a pretty heavy cat. I'm going to lower the volume here because I can't hear myself. Yeah, Lennie Tristano was a really heavy cat, and a guy whose communication had no filters. I mean, Lennie Tristano spoke his truth. He wasn't what I would call a gentle cat. He wasn't a harmful guy, but he was a rather outspoken individual. So a 16-year-old kid taking the bus in Queens, I think from Long Island to Queens, to study with Lennie Tristano. It had a profound impact on Dave Frank, his music and his life. That's what happens. Music has a way of touching people. Yvette says that Lennie and Lee and Warren loved each other. Yeah, of course they loved each other. I mean, Yvette, I'm curious. Did you know that? Do you know them? Did you hear them play? Lee Konitz, Alfredo says, Lee Konitz, when Pierre Annunzi, Chet Baker was at a gig or recording. I know Lee spent a lot of time in Europe in his later years. So that may be something I don't know. Now, in terms of the other cats, I just wanted to say a few words about who also left us. One was McCoy and one was Wallace Roney. There's a lot of things to be said about McCoy Tyner and Wallace Roney. But the truth is that their music really tells their story. I mean, there are always like details of, he was here then, or he played there then, or there are different achievements, different obstacles that are overcome. But it's really about the music. And that's what, although McCoy and Wallace were two very interesting men to know and spend time around, very different people, that's for sure, in their personalities. I'm trying to think if I have any. I have one McCoy Tyner interview posted on my channel here. I don't think I have any Wallace. I'll tell you a story here about Wallace. And I don't dislike Wallace for the story and what happened, but it says something about him and who he was. Now, first of all, Wallace is a fantastic trumpet player. Because because Miles was his mentor, and his playing definitely mirrors Miles, echoes Miles. He's cast as a Miles Davis. I don't want to say Miles Davis impersonator, but definitely Wallace and Miles end up being in the same sentence. So that, in a way, took away from what Wallace Roney, the individual. But nevertheless, in the 90s, when I was writing for Jazz Times, I did an article about Wallace. And at that time, I had a computer. I had my laptop with me, and I transcribed what people said. I didn't record it. The reason I did that was because I type 100 words a minute. Even if I make mistakes, it's easier for me to transcribe while I'm talking to someone than go ahead and do the interview and then come back and spend more time transcribing it again, trying to economize on my time for an article, which really doesn't pay very much. Obviously, that's not why I did it, for the money, but nevertheless, I am trying to make a living out here. So, did an interview with Wallace. I thought it was cool. Wallace was a bit guarded in the interview. We were in a restaurant. Wallace was with his manager, Ora Harris, or his publicist. I can't remember what she was. She was a very nice woman from the Bay Area. She's worked with a number of musicians over the years. But Wallace was kind of guarded. And okay, so I wrote an interview, an article for Jazz Times that was published sometime in the early 90s, mid 90s. Came out, seemed cool to me. The editor called me up and said, Wallace is very upset about the interview. He's writing a letter to the editor. We're going to publish it. I suggest you not answer the letter in print because it will only draw more attention to something that really doesn't, deserve attention. But we want to give him his voice. I said, cool. So Wallace took me to task. He said that I did not correctly reproduce his quotes. Now, I did transcribe it. Unlikely possible, I might have skipped a word or two, but he just didn't like the whole way that I put it together. I forget the exact specifications. Okay, that's actually the only time that's ever happened to me. I've written hundreds of articles, liner notes, interviews, but that's okay. Sensitive guy, Wallace Roney. Had a difficult journey in many ways, personally, and later in his life with health. But Wallace Roney, and any great musician, any artist, is the sum of many different components. We are less than perfect, all of us. Some of us, our faults and our inability to deal with the obstacles we face brings us down. Others keep going. Sadly, Wallace was not able to, deal with his obstacles, and he got caught up in the COVID thing, and he's gone. But love his music. We'll continue to listen to it. McCoy Tyner, still listen to his music a lot. Very lucky to have heard him live. Very honest, truthful person. Yeah. I don't know about Lee Konitz being up in Hartford, Connecticut. When I spent some time with Lee was in the early 70s, and then I lost touch with him personally. I don't know. I'm not sure when he went to Europe. Do you know when he went to Europe? See, if I was a ventriloquist, my chicken could talk. But in this case, okay, that's a good place for him, over there in the corner. No, I don't know if Lee was in Hartford, Connecticut. I mean, what's happening jazz-wise in Hartford, Connecticut since the 70s has been Jackie McLean and the Hart College of Music, Hart School of Music. Now the Jackie McLean School of Music. Interesting observation here. Normalized, Jackie McLean is, I think, who you mean. Connor, music comes from oppression, perhaps. I don't know if it comes from oppression, but certainly I believe that oppression can produce some very dynamic music, because when we're oppressed, we have a need to express our anger, to express our feelings. And when we create, that's how we express those feelings. And that's why I'm concerned about the times that maybe Roney had a bad day. Hey, we all have a bad day, I'm concerned about what's happening on our planet and the kind of negative turn that it's taking. I hope that it's not going to be a permanent thing. I'm not going to be around forever, but I hope it'll get back. But the truth is, that I see the positive and not the negative on this planet. I don't see Wallace Roney and his interview thing, or the plumber who told me maybe you should just move. Maybe you should just leave town. We encounter a number of these people in life. Can I comment on Lee's very unique approach to improv? I don't think I've heard another horn player sound like him. I am not. I don't have those skills to be able to tell you about that because I haven't studied that. And rather than trying to use some adjectives to describe the way that I hear it, I say listen to it. Also, after I do this, I'll post some links from YouTube. I'll see if there's some interview stuff where he talks about his style. It wouldn't surprise me. As a matter of fact, while I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, I can multitask. I'm actually doing this on 2 screens at once. Therefore, I'm going to take this browser over to this screen and go over to YouTube and search for, I'm going to save you guys time, search for Lee Konitz interview. Yes. Yeah. Yes. There's a lot of stuff here. He talks about his playing and his experiences. So on YouTube, search for Lee Konitz interview, and you'll get it from the horse's mouth, although in this case, the saxophonist's mouth. Yes, my friend Dave Liebman is a big jazz supporter as well. Okay, Yvette, I like your words here. She says, didn't musicians only get big sense the music community really appreciate one another? That's very true. That's what I picked up in the Vanguard when I was in the kitchen there in my early days. That these people really love each other and they care about each other and they take care of each other and they inspire each other and they encourage each other. And that is a wonderful thing. Those are wonderful qualities as people. Now, not every jazz musician is a saint, and not every jazz musician is an innovator. Our music community is composed of people of varying degrees, of different contributions that they make. I'm waiting for the next Coltrane. I mean, that would be nice. I haven't heard anyone, an innovator like that. Maybe we'll never have another one in my lifetime, maybe in yours, some of you. I mean, maybe it'll come in a different kind of way. I don't know. I personally think that was the last major change in the music, one individual moving things harmonically, melodically. And there's been other people who have done things since then, but the totality of what he did, who he was as a person, and the intensity of music, especially his later music, which is still being absorbed. I don't hear there hasn't been anybody yet like that. Okay, let's see. Questions here. We give Lee a hard time. I don't know what you mean by that. Lee loves him. Yeah. Do you remember Jazz Improv magazine published by Eric Niemeyer? I have just about every copy. Yes, I know that magazine. I don't know what happened to Eric Niemeyer, but he was a very dedicated young man who published a magazine that was very comprehensive in its coverage of the music. Theoretically, a lot of music lessons in there, master classes in a way. And also, he put together a number of events. I remember like a convention he had in the city, something. I don't know. I have no idea what happened to him. But yes, I remember that. And where did you get your shirt? I got it from a vendor of goods from Nepal. Unfortunately, his inventory did not include something I remember very fondly from the 1970s called Nepalese hash. But nevertheless, it had these little white specks in it. Oh man, that was some things you remember. Anyway, so this shirt is from Nepal. Do you have a collection of your jazz articles? No, I don't. I have some. I've written a lot. Some of them are online, thankfully. I'm not a saver of things. I have some stuff, but I have so many CDs, I don't even listen to them. I mean, it's unbelievable. I seem to access everything online. I'd like to give it to somebody who can use it, but most people don't listen to CDs anymore. I'm from another era. I am old school. But Yvette, to sell, no. But I'll happy to share with you what I have. Yes, he was involved. Let's see, Rick Margitza. Yeah, Rick Margitza, who I've known since the 80s, late 80s, I believe. When he played with Miles, that's how I got turned on to Rick. And his recordings on Blue Note. Great musician, wonderful concept. I believe he lives in Europe now. Facebook friend of mine, really cool guy. Hi, Booby. Oh, yes. Dave Frank is in the house. Dave, can you answer a question about Lee Konitz for us? Question mark? Because Dave is a much better communicator. Okay. Can you say a few words, Dave, about Lee Konitz's style of improvisation? Thank you. We're awaiting Dave Franks. Students of Lennie. Lee was one of the very top. Yes. Dave lives on East 52nd Street in New York City. He's sequestered in his studio where he plays and shoots, and some of his stuff, his lessons. One of the top students and founding members of the Tristano scene. Yeah. More, Dave, please, more. No, Jeff, I never wrote for Jazz Improv. I was busy with other stuff at the time. That's when I got into the internet. But once I got into the internet in the 90s, I was really busy with Jazz Central Station and GMN, one of those live webcasts, things in the late 90s. And also, I have some vinyl even. I also did a blog called Bird Lives, where as the pariah, I rallied against my impassioned diatribes, rallied against the injustices of the music industry. Dave, more on Lee. Dave says his main thing was that he evolved the style that was different than Bird. Because Bird had such an incredible effect on alto players that 90% of them tried to play like him, which is nearly impossible. Many were influenced by him, but Lee Konitz and Paul Desmond both developed their own very distinct alto styles. In a way, both more lyrical than Bird. Dave, he had a beautiful, sweet tone. Yes. Yeah. As we hear in the background here. You are very kind. Okay. Normalized audio. I'm hip showing. That's what Lee Konitz said. That Bird and him got tight because Bird knew that he wasn't trying to be like him. Dave says he was completely devoted to spontaneity. That word is the key to this music and to life. Spontaneity. Art Pepper, in a way, but I still hear, more Bird and Art Pepper than I do in Lee Konitz or Paul Desmond. Those are just my ears. Okay, Dave says he was completely devoted to spontaneity. He used both narrow and wide intervals, more wide intervals than other players. Now, when we say intervals to non-musicians, that means when you go from one note to another, if it's just like a C to a D, just one step, that's not a very wide interval. But if you go like 10 or 15 notes up, that's a very wide interval. It's a different concept, different sound. Jeff, I don't know about that Telly Savalas gig. You know, let me see. You know, I am open to all possibilities. Let's see here. Yeah. Yeah. I love that show when it was on TV, Kojak. Okay. Dave says intervals. He looks much better. He's a teacher, not me. The space between the notes. Sean says Konitz's later sound, they say later because the sound changed immensely over the years, which is true. It's so cloud-like, floaty, and much more focused on harmony. And then Dave says he played a lot with Lennie and with Warren Marsh. Yeah. It's interesting. We're hearing audio of the guy of the people who are on screen, but it's not synced. I have to work on that. I'll get that together. A comedian in the house, normalized audio, like between C and C sharp. Okay, bada bung. Are you the Buddy Hackett or the Henny Youngman? Yes, where are you from, normalized audio? And is there an unnormalized audio? I mean, you know, you hear nonchalant. Is there a chalant? I got that from George Carlin. I've been listening to George Carlin a lot lately. You know, surviving in these times for me involves a lot of jazz and a lot of comedy, for sure. Let's see. Dave Frank says there's a video of Lee playing with Lennie and Warren Marsh. We'll have to look for that. Neil, Konitz is ornate. That's an interesting adjective. Okay, Dave says the particular video, this is the absolute peak. The Y video is above. I am scanning up the chat. Let's see here. I don't see the link here on the chat. I'll look for it on the page, in the comment section of the page after the chat is over, and you can access the thing there. But there's a lot of Lee Konitz on YouTube. Beautiful YouTube. Thank you. Once again, another day of YouTube still working. I'm not on Netflix. As I said yesterday, YouTube and Netflix are 40%, 60% of the internet at this point. There's so much traffic on those two sites because video takes up so much data. The internet really wasn't designed with this much data. Let's see. Now, this is very interesting. Normalized audio. You're from Montana. You're from rural Montana. I would imagine that you were in a place where there's not too many people around. How do you get your internet? Via satellite? And is that expensive? I'm curious about that. Better buy some lollipops. Too much sugar on lollipops. I enjoy other kinds of things without sugar in them. Okay, Dave Frank. Lee Konitz was a really nice guy with a great sense of humor. He was fun to be around, and he didn't take himself too seriously. But I didn't play with him. I don't know what he was like in the bandstand, but just the interaction I saw between the musicians and how they talked to each other. Just a really warm, funny guy. Did he ever experiment with modal approach or only over chord standards? That's a question for you, Dave. I don't know if Lee Konitz was a Buddhist. Perhaps I am, but I don't know if he was. Yeah, Lee Konitz was devoted to 50 years in the music. Yes, Connor, you're a very perceptive man. Can you recognize the picture, the person in the picture next to it? Lee played on the very first recording of free jazz. Now, Dave is a pianist. I am not a musician. I played the trumpet when I was a kid, but I became a writer, filmmaker, activist, troublemaker. Very interesting observation here, Jeff. He feels that Konitz and Desmond had same dry tone. I don't know if dry is the way to best, but I don't know what you're saying. But Lee had the harmony and Paul had the melody. Both had exceptional rhythm feel. Yeah. Paul Desmond. I was lucky to hear Paul Desmond live with the Dave Brubeck Quartet in 1964. He came to my high school. Oh my God. It was fate. Bird. But I love Johnny Hodges. I love Paul Desmond. I love Lee Konitz. There's so many. Definitely. But Johnny Hodges. I saw Johnny Hodges at Duke Ellington. My God. Even then I was a kid. Their sound. And Cat Anderson. That was the other guy in the band. Because I was a young trumpeter. A high note trumpeter is obviously going to get my attention. Let's see here. Lee says, Dave says in 1949, Lee, this is the first free jazz recording. Lee, Lennie, Warren, and others played 2 tunes called Intuition and Digression, which are the first documented recordings of free jazz history, and they were fantastic. Jeff likes Ornette Coleman. I love Ornette Coleman. Yeah. I got the video stopped here. I got Apple TV on my other computer here. On my other TV. Okay. Back in business here. I'm going to put this link in here. Fantastic place to. Want to pick up want to listen to a lot of Lee Konitz in concert. Go to Sugar Megs and search for Lee Konitz, and there's 10 or 15, maybe as many as 20 concerts on there for different points in his career, in different board mixes, audience recordings, radio recordings, and that's true of many other artists as well. This is an indispensable resource for people who like to listen to music in concert, live music, live recordings, and can't necessarily get there because of our location. I know when you're in rural Montana, probably not so many people are passing through. Maybe you can make it to Helena, Montana. I know that there's some music occasionally going on there. There are some jazz musicians there as well, I know. But when you're in rural Montana, it's about the internet, right? I'd love to visit rural Montana, especially in times like these. I just want to get as far away as possible from civilization. Actually, I can drive 20 minutes and be in the middle of the desert where there's no sign of humanity at all. That's what a blessing that is. Let's see, getting back to our comments, questions. I'm glad there is you. I do. Well, thank you if you're talking to me. I'm glad there is you. And I think, isn't there a song, I'm glad there is you? Lee Konitz, the drummer keeps on ticking, a pioneer in bebop, cool jazz and free jazz. Yeah, Lee was in 3 schools. He was in bebop, he was in cool, he was in free jazz. And you can see all of his playing, and you can hear all those recordings. As we know, YouTube is also a repository of his recordings released on different record labels. So between Sugar Megs, where you can listen to a lot of live stuff, YouTube, where you can watch and view Lee at different stages of his career, recordings and stuff that he did on video. A lot of Lee Konitz out there, and that's fantastic. And that holds true of many other artists as well. You know, we have to be thankful that this exists. When I was a young guy getting into this music in the early 60s, in Hartford, West Hartford, Connecticut, where I grew up, the only way that I could find out about the music and hear it and see it was to, number one, there was a jazz show on the radio for 2 hours every night. And if I was lucky, that was on an FM station. And if I was lucky, the AM station from New York on Saturdays, which I picked up by moving the radio around to different areas in the room, was hosted a 1 hour show or a 2 hour show. I forget. It was hosted by a guy named Billy Taylor. And he was a fantastic activist, enthusiast about this music and the people who played it. And I also went to a record store where an alto player named Norm Gage, Newberry Records, downtown Hartford, Mark Kaplan and I would go down there, and he would hip us to different music. And we read Downbeat magazine. And Dave Brubeck came to my high school. Duke Ellington came to my high school. Maynard Ferguson, Stan Kenton played at a local summer amusement resort when I was 15. I mean, amazing. Anyway, back to Lee Konitz. Enough about me. I'm lucky to have heard all these cats. I mean, yeah. I'm gonna hear more. Okay, so Dave Franks tells us Lee was a pioneer in a number of different areas of jazz, and he was a major figure in each. Yes, Dave, it's wonderful to have you be with us. I get the impression from what you're saying here that you're taking off. Dave is a very busy guy. Dave has a lot of students, you know, from all over the world. Oh, Johnny Hodges playing Blood Count. I mean, that shit is deep, man. I mean, all the stuff that Strayhorn wrote and played around that time, and the cats who first played it in the Ellington band. Wow, that was perhaps. Well, there were a number of groups in the music in the 40s and the 50s, and also in the 60s. But the Ellington band, because of Duke Ellington and his music and who he was as a man, they were unique. They were in American culture. Duke didn't make a lot of money traveling. He lost money, but thanks to his compositions, he was able to hear his new compositions and arrangements played every night. He would work long into the night, lubricating himself with ice cream and sometimes beautiful women. And he was on the road his whole life. That's what he did. You know, that was amazing. His energy, who he was, that really came through when I saw him live. So I feel very lucky about that. Okay, let's see. That was okay. How might you compare Lee's playing to Warren? Who better personifies Lennie's teaching concepts? You know, Lennie didn't want you to play like Lennie. I mean, Lennie's teaching concepts were about were about doing things that would allow you to be yourself. And I think I hear Lee and Warren as two very different people. I never got a chance to meet Warren or see him live, but I knew and have seen Lee live and heard Warren's music, just different cats. So I can't say. Maybe Dave is good. He probably went to teach. But Can't do that. I'm sorry. I have my limitations. I shouldn't get a chair that swivels. I have to remember to do that. I need another chair.
Construction piano. Op 20 november in Lantaarn Venster in Rotterdam tijdens
Check
festival.
that out. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I got about 4 minutes left here. Great that you're doing this. Love from Malta. Oh, Malta. Yes. I once had a friend who was an actor who shot a movie in Malta, Popeye. Maybe that was before your time. I don't know how old you were. This was back in the early 70s. Sounded like an interesting place, Malta. Let's see here. Any other questions I can answer? How did you approach musicians about video interviewing them? Were they appreciative of your mission interest? 90% of musicians that I've known and worked with and interviewed have been appreciative and interested and respectful. Some because of time constraints or down for an extended interview like this on camera, were cooperative, but you know that's par for the course. In terms of what I do, obviously musicians are appreciative. I help the music and I help them. And when I see them in person, which I don't enough these days because I'm based in the desert, the Sonoran Desert, in my fortress of solitude, me and Superman, although I don't possess any supernatural powers or superpowers, although if I did have superpowers, I think if I had one superpower, I think it would be flying. Because I often admire birds in the desert. I watch them as they move around, sometimes in search of prey. And I wonder what would it be like to be up there and move around. Now, when you have superpowers, you're Superman like that, you could fly. I mean, you could go from continent to continent. I mean, that would save a lot on airfare. My goodness. Anyway, I don't have superpowers. I'm just an aging Jew, and I'm going to keep on going here. As the jazz video guy and my other activities, I'm on hold for a documentary I'm doing now about anti-Semitism in America, working with Holocaust survivors. But this virus thing, what's happening, and having so many people online inspired me to do these live chats every day. When this thing ends, I don't know what has happened. I'll just go back to once a week. But I'm going to continue to do this. I like it. And I'm going to be bringing more people. I'm going to produce a better program, I think. I have some really cool software that I'm learning. It's going to allow me to actually play videos for you through a console here, music, also do live chats with people on Skype and via FaceTime. The software's a little tricky, though. I hope to have it down by next week. I highly recommend it, though. I haven't learned it totally. If you want to do live streaming and are willing to devote a little bit of time and money to doing a more professional production, Ecamm Live is where you should go to check it out. You could there's a trial version for 2 weeks. Let's see, find a vaccine for Corona. That'll come eventually, but not fast enough for most of us. But this is the way of the world. The people who run the world, especially the United States, aren't really planners. Our species only deals with something when it's like, we have two life-ending things on the horizon here that we have yet to deal with. One is climate change and global warming, which eventually could wipe humankind off the face of the earth eventually. And the other is nuclear war, which could wipe humanity out sooner or later. So this is the world we live in. Let's see. I recommend using Split Broadcaster for live streaming. It does everything on camera different. I will check that out, Sean. I appreciate that recommendation. I'm going to copy that here because I'm just getting started with Ecamm. I'm always open to new possibilities. And okay, Jeff Taylor says, I think we're witnessing the death of live great music. Kids' priorities have changed and they'll be in charge soon. kids' priorities have changed. They will be in charge, but I don't see the death of live great music because there are too many people, even young people, who get a lot from live music. And when I go to Smalls in New York City and I sit in an audience of mostly young people, maybe not teenagers, but a lot of college kids and millennials, I know that live music is something that will always be prized. And I hope that you'll keep listening to it, supporting it, creating it. God bless you for coming to today's sermon. We have no God here, only our love of the music that drives us and inspires us. So until the next time we meet, I bid you good health and please be safe.